So in this video, I just want to talk a little bit about being an INFP male versus being an INFP female in today's world, and whether it really is that much more difficult to be an INFP male. And often you'll see videos and ideas out there that it's a little bit difficult to be an INFP male specifically because the introverted feeling and the extroverted intuition, which are the main functions of an INFP, don't lend themselves well to traditional masculinity, or at least that's the idea. But I am not so convinced that it's particularly more difficult to be an INFP male compared to an INFP female. It might be when you look at ideas of systematic, societal, is that a word? Ideas of what you're supposed to be. I guess, first of all, if you're an INFP, you just don't want to particularly fit in anyway, I don't think. But we'll talk about struggles I had because it probably might have been a bit more difficult growing up as an INFP boy, but I'm not sure even this is necessarily the case. And I'm only speaking from my subjective male experience. I can't speak for females. I can't speak for INFP females, but I'll observe things I've noticed anyway. So it probably was a bit more of a threat to my physical safety to be an INFP male growing up. From the time I started, first day of school, everyone went into class. Unfortunately, I had looked up at the clouds and I got kind of mesmerized by the clouds and then got lost in my own head. I looked down, everyone's gone into class, I'm alone, I start crying. My teacher, Miss Galupkin, she was Russian, she came in and took me back to the classroom and sat me down next to a guy called Daniel, who I think was an ESTP, and I said, "Hi, how are you?" And I can't remember what he said, but it was something like, "I don't like you." And that was basically very early experiences, was just like, guys really didn't like me. And if I look at old footage of videos, it was just dislike towards me for everything that I was. And I was very confused by this. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. In high school, same thing, basically, especially like when I was 13, you'd get a group of guys and they'd see me with my 3 friends and they would say, "Why are you hanging around with this guy? He's a loser." Just automatic dislike of me. It was always like a first impression of dislike, and that continued. I think I enjoyed it. I don't know. I got into a lot of fights. Not real fights, but like if someone was attempting to bully me, I might let them have a few punches and then I'd kick them in the face and then a big thing would start. But it was enough to put a bit of fear into people, and I was left alone through most of high school as someone who's a weirdo. To be fair, I am a weirdo. So these are some growing up as an INFP male stories, which there are other INFP males I know who fit in a little bit better. But I wouldn't say I did, but I was very creative and I found my own way to cope. And again, I was writing a lot of stories or even novels when I was when I was about 15, 16, 17, and I would be in math class. I wouldn't be talking to anybody. Sometimes they'd be like, "What's he writing?" And then they would read it and they'd start laughing because what I was writing was actually quite funny, because I had all these stories about being an INFP male in a horrible Catholic boys' school like I was in. And they were very violent stories that would appeal to other guys. I think a few guys actually thought I was cool after that, or they seemed to like me a little bit more, or hate me a little bit less. And I think this is another INFP thing where they're just so negative. Like, I say the same thing about being 18, 19, 20, no one likes me, I'm sitting alone in every class. But that's not true. I joined a band called The Failures, run by an INFJ from philosophy class. We'd play in the dark for hours drinking beer. Everyone in his band were really nice to me. I just couldn't deal with the fact that people were nice to me. I couldn't understand it, so I stopped turning up to any of these rehearsals. It was much easier to just go back to the old ESTJ, ISTJ groups and hang around at their, go to holiday houses with about like 10 guys, get drunk for 3 days and live off Krispy Kreme donuts and watch as each ESTJ at the party, there was about 3, you watch them start drinking heavily and start crying because they've unleashed their INFP subconsciouses. Sometimes if they had a bit too much to drink, they'd throw up and start crying and saying that they're out of commission, there's no one to protect them now. And then the other drunk ESTJ would say, "You think you can protect us? You can't protect us." And they'd just, and then more vomit. And sometimes the ESTJs though would, one of them when he was very drunk, he was a guy who really didn't like me, he put his arm around me and he told everyone, this guy Peter, he knows what life's all about. I was shocked that he was saying this. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, from that moment, as men transition, especially after 18, 19, guys who might not have liked me, by the time I was 22 and they bumped into me, they were extremely friendly and warm towards me, and not necessarily so warm towards other guys I was around. It was me specifically, or my other INFP friend. And I think what happened is there was a build-up of respect, and there is a masculine idea of being immovable, of having strong principles. And then through your 20s, I don't know, I just think things that might be seen as not very masculine end up being totally fine, and I've always basically got on pretty well in groups of all guys. So now I want to talk about some observations I've found with INFP females. I'm going to assume that being an INFP and having that sort of independent mind, living in a bit of a dream world, I'm going to assume it's still pretty difficult. I'm going to assume there's a lot of exclusion and female bullying going on in girl groups. And I'm also going to just assume that through high school, there's just as much depression as for males. I've always liked INFP females, and I'd be on the school bus, because again, I went to an all-boys school, and you'd see girls on the bus. That was pretty much my only contact with females, and I felt like you could tell who the INFP females were. They were dressing a bit more alternative and sitting at the front of the bus. And then by the time I got to university and I studied philosophy, there was particularly like an INFP girl in philosophy class, and she didn't have any friends. She was very isolated. Nobody talked to her. And when I befriended her, I was trying to romance her, but because she was an INFP, we just became close friends mixed in with everything. She had like a few friends from high school, and that seemed to be it. But she was an early example I found of being an INFP who was kind of disliked. And over the years after I met her, she she definitely would rub people the wrong way, which I could never really work out what that was about, because I thought she was great. She had a tendency to be very sarcastic. That was her defense mechanism against me. And when I used to go out on little dates with her, it would often come out like the exclusion that other girls were putting her through, and the nastiness, and the she was very upset about a lot of people and how a lot of people acted and people's insensitivity. And then as the years went on, meeting more and more INFP females, there was a bit of a similar thing there. A lot of sarcasm, a lot of feeling very hurt and affected by other people in the same way that I would be. And in office environments too, like, especially if I thought they were great, people would just like really dismiss them and just say they're boring. They're, a lot of ignoring them. I always wonder if being an INFP male is a little bit easier for the kudos you get for being a male who's a little bit more sensitive and empathetic, and people are so surprised that a male can be nice, nice or creative, that people put you on a pedestal way higher than you really need to be. Like, there's nothing that special, especially compared to, say, an INFP female who might be a very similar person to you, who might be creative, who might be just almost the same as you, and they're getting no kudos for it because they're a woman. And the other thing about being an INFP female, I think, is, again, that independence of thought and feelings and going against the grain. It's not actually an ideal female personality type to be if you're looking in terms of ideals and what society expects. Now, I don't really know what it means when society expects something. I know there's a thing. I know there's a whole world out there of what you're supposed to be, and then if you're not fitting in, perhaps people get angry at you and put certain pressures on you. But at the end of the day, it's an absolute joy to not fit in. And I suspect that INFP females feel the same joy, and they're very happy not to fit in, and they're very happy to go against the grain as well. So sorry about this rambling video. I'm very incoherent. I refuse to write scripts or even notes down. I just refuse. This is a proper INFP channel with meandering thoughts that don't necessarily make sense. Often when I'm like trying to edit a video, I realize like I'm constantly contradicting myself. But yeah, anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments if you're an INFP, or even if you're not an INFP, any type. and even talk about your own experiences as a different type, your own observations of INFP females or males, or if you're an INFP female, tell me how wrong I am, because I can't really have any idea what that experience is like. I'm really just curious, and I just want to put it out there that I don't know if it really is that much more hard for INFP males growing up in today. I think actually INFP males get a lot of kudos. I keep using the word kudos. I always like the word kudos. Is it Greek? It must be Greek. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this rambling video, and I'll chat to you or talk to you, or I'll talk to the camera next time.